The patrol cruiser Ardent moved through quiet space like a steady heartbeat. Its hull was smooth, gray, and clean. Its engines hummed with a calm sound that the crew knew well. This part of the Empire's border was usually silent. Charts showed. Few ships, few stations, and nothing unusual. Most patrols were slow and simple. People on board joked that the only excitement came from the old coffee machine in the mess. Commander Mira stood at the main window, hands behind her back, watching starlight slide past. She liked the quiet. Quiet meant the crew could rest. Quiet meant no mistakes. Quiet meant no messages from angry officers who wanted results without risk. She breathed slowly and counted the points of light. At the sensor station, Rin frowned at a soft tone that broke the routine. He checked the display, then checked again. "Commander," he said, voice steady but curious. "I have a strange return." Mira turned, calm and alert. "What kind of strange?" "It's a mass," Rin said. "Not small, but it did not arrive by any normal jump. No tunnel signature, no warp streak. It was not there, and now it is there." "Anomaly?" Mira asked. "I thought so," Rin said. "But the signal is clean. The object reflects like a ship. It is about 500 meters long. It is just sitting there." Mira moved to Rin's station. She watched the numbers change. The object was real. It drifted at the edge of the patrol route, not moving much, not broadcasting any code. No name, no friend or foe tag, no common radar tone. Lieutenant Noor looked up from the comm desk. "No signal," she said. "I can try standard greetings." "It," Mira said. "Stay formal." Noor touched the controls and sent a clear line. "Unidentified vessel. This is Imperial Patrol Cruiser Ardent on routine watch. Please transmit recognition code and intent. Identify yourself." The message went out in Imperial Common, then in trade language, then in a clear tone pattern used by small colonies. There was no answer. The bridge crew waited. The air felt still. One could hear the soft sounds of the ship's systems, the hum of air, the whisper of circuits, the tick of cooling metal. It all felt louder than before, as if the ship itself was listening. Mira spoke gently. "Rin, give me a scan. Basic, then focused. No active locks yet." Rin nodded. His hands moved in small, careful motions. Basic scan going out. No response. Flags, now focused. Surface contour, heat map, emissions. On the main screen, an image began to build. It was simple at first. A long shape, smooth and elegant, like a blade with rounded edges. No visible antenna arrays, no external weapon ports, no standard hangar lines. It did not match any book in the Ardent's library. Noor glanced at the clock. 30 seconds. Still no reply, she said, choosing not to add the worry in her voice. Mira kept her tone soft. "Try again." Noor sent the greeting one more time, then added a kindness. "If you are in need of help, signal distress. We can render basic aid." Rin's eyes narrowed. "Commander, the heat signature is very low. I can't read engines. It's as if the whole ship hides its temperature inside a shell." "Cloak?" asked Tech Evo from the engineering console. He was young and sometimes spoke too fast, but his mind was sharp. "Not a full cloak. More like a perfect skin." Mira nodded. "Keep it steady, we don't escalate, we only watch." On the lower deck, the crew went quiet too. Stories moved along the corridors faster than official messages. A maintenance hand whispered to a friend, "A ghost ship." And the friend shook his head with a smile that did not reach his eyes on. The bridge, the unknown ship, did not move. It did not drift off course. It simply held position as if gravity meant nothing to it. The Ardent slid closer by slow degrees, still outside the range of a quick strike, still respectful of unknown things. Noor sent a third message, then a fourth. Silence held. A soft beep came from Rin's panel. He spoke again. "Commander, this part makes no sense. The ship is there, but the distance measure points to two values at once. It's like it sits in two spots at the same time, but only a hair apart." "Sensor ghost?" Mira asked. "I checked for that," Rin said. "Systems are stable. I ran a loop. The twin reading holds. It is like the ship is a reflection of itself." Mira did not like guesses, but she trusted her crew. She turned to Noor. "Mark the time. Send to Fleet Watch. Unidentified." Vessel, no registry. Appears without jump signature. No response to hail. Shape unknown. Declare watch level amber. Noor repeated the message and let it fly. She looked at the front window and spoke in a small voice. "It looks calm." It did. The unknown ship had a beauty that was not common in Imperial steel. Its lines were clean but not simple. Its surface was smooth but not blank. If one looked closely, tiny patterns shimmered across the hull like the light on a sea creature's skin. It was not bright. It was quiet. It was not loud or proud. It was just there. Tech Ivo checked power flow. "Shields at ready level, weapons cold," he said. "Engine steady. We can move if we need to." Mira gave a small nod. "We won't need to," she said, though she could not explain why she believed it. "No one fires, no one locks. We wait." Minutes passed. It was strange how time felt different when one watched a silent stranger. Each second was long. Each breath carried a question. A nurse on the medical deck paused while folding clean sheets and looked at a small wall screen that showed a tiny dot, ardent, near a longer shape, unknown. A cook in the galley held a pot in midair for a moment, then set it down with care. At the sensor station, Rin sat very still. Then he blinked and leaned closer. "Commander," he whispered, almost a breath. "It is looking at us." Mira did not ask how he knew. She felt it too, in the way small numbers on the panel shifted by tiny increments. The unknown ship adjusted its angle by less than a degree. It lined its center line with Ardent's heart. It did not feel like a weapon aim. It felt like an eye, turning. It felt like a question asked without words. Noor shook her head slowly. "Should I send a simple code? Just a greeting? No language?" Mira thought for a beat. "Yes, a soft pattern, peaceful, old colony style. 3 notes, pause, 3 notes, long tone." Noor tapped it out and sent the simple song of tones. The sound was gentle and friendly. Many old stations still used it when a beacon was all they had. For a short moment, nothing changed. Then Rin's panel showed a soft echo. A return tone came back, a match to the same pattern but cleaner, smoother, as if the sender knew the song but sang it better. On the bridge, everyone looked at Noor. Noor smiled without meaning to. "It answered," she said. "It heard us." "Good," Mira said with a breath of relief. "Record it. Send another, same style. Keep it calm." Noor sent a second tone. The unknown ship answered again, this time adding a tiny shift at the end. Rin stared at the waveform. "It is not random," he said. "It is speaking in our music. It is learning the way we talk to be safe." Mira felt a quiet joy in her chest. It had been a long time since she felt that on patrol. She looked at the ship and allowed herself a small thought. Maybe not everything needs to be a fight. Then a soft alarm chimed. Noor's hands froze on her console. "Commander," Fleet Watch responded. "They want us to hold position and keep the ship in view. They also want a timed active scan to get a hard contour and a core mass reading." Mira did not like active scans on guests. They could be read as a threat. But orders were orders, and she had to balance risk and duty. She stood straight. "We will perform a light active scan, short pulse. Evo, keep our power low so it does." Not look like a weapon cycle? Evo nodded. Power trim ready? It will look like a soft breeze. Rin prepared the scan. He set it to a short burst. He kept the frequency dull and kind. The team had trained for this. They knew how to touch with light without hurting. Ready, he said. On your mark. Mira took one more breath, then said, Send. The pulse went out. It was a gentle knock, a touch of light. The unknown ship shimmered. It did not flare shields. It did not aim guns. It did not run. Tiny patterns along its skin glowed for only a blink, then faded. Rin's board filled with numbers more than he expected. Return signal mapped, he said. We have amazing detail. He stared at his display. There were no seams. In the hull, no plates, no rivets, no obvious doors. The structure read like a single piece grown rather than built. The mass reading was low for its size, as if much of it was empty or made of a light, perfect material. Noor leaned forward. Should I thank it? She asked softly. And when Mira nodded, she sent the tone again with a tiny bow in the rhythm. The unknown ship answered one more time. Then Rin spoke, his voice suddenly tight. Commander, he said, there is a new shift. The ship is overlapping with itself more. The twin distance reading is now 3, then 4. Layers. Layers? Evo asked. Like a stack, Rin said. Like it sits in more than one. Placed by a tiny amount. The numbers climb. Mira moved behind him and looked at the values. It felt like watching a wave rise before it touches shore. What does that mean? Rin did not answer right away. He was listening to the numbers the way a musician listens to chords. I think it is getting ready to go, he said at last. Not away by jump, just gone. Mira had the sudden urge to reach out and ask it to stay. She held her hands tight behind her back instead. Noor, she said, send a final tone. Gratitude. Wish it well. Noor sent it. Her eyes were wet, but she did not know why. The unknown ship did not reply. On the screen, its outline became soft, like a pencil line rubbed with a finger. The message from the Ardent traveled quickly through the Empire's network, moving from one relay station to another until it reached the vast, bright halls of Fleet Command on Bracos Prime. By the time it landed on the desk of High Admiral Corvin, the report had already been read by at least a dozen officers, each one adding their own quiet notes and private theories. Corvin read slowly, his brow furrowing at the simplicity of the words. The unknown ship's sudden appearance, its silence, the strange musical exchange, and its equally sudden disappearance. It was unlike anything the Empire had recorded in recent decades. He set the report down and looked at the long, polished table where his senior captains waited. It was just there, Corvin said in a low voice. No warp tunnel, no jump signature, and it left without one. You understand what that means? Captain Rel, seated to his right, tapped the table with a gloved finger. It means someone has technology we can't trace, he said. Someone who can appear inside our borders without warning. Someone who can leave without giving us a trail to follow. It means, added Commodore Voss, that the Empire has a hole in its walls, and we don't know how big that hole is. Corvin stood and moved toward the large hollow map in the center of the chamber. With a gesture, he brought up the recorded image from the Ardent, an elegant blade-like ship, motionless in the void, patterns shimmering across its hull. The room grew quieter as everyone stared at it. It looks alive, one of the younger captains murmured, almost to herself. Corvin let the comment hang in the air. We cannot ignore this, he said at last. We will not tell the public, not yet, but we will find this vessel, and we will know where it came from. Orders were given, and the hunt began. In the weeks that followed, Imperial space felt different. Patrol routes were altered. Sensor buoys were upgraded with the newest scanning software. Border garrisons were told to keep their eyes open for any object, no matter how small, that appeared without a detectable arrival path. The Ardent, still on duty near the border, felt the change immediately. Commander Mira noticed the constant flow of coded messages from Fleet Watch, each one containing coordinates of strange readings or brief flashes caught on long-range sensors, but each time the patrols arrived, the target was gone. Some sightings came from merchant ships. A freighter captain swore he had seen a thin shadow pass across the stars, faster than his eyes could follow. A mining crew on an asteroid reported a silver fish gliding between rocks before fading into nothing. None of these reports lasted more than a heartbeat, and none of them left a clear trace. On the third week of the search, a new lead appeared. In a sector known for its dense nebulae, places where light bent strangely and ships could hide for days, 2 scouts detected something unusual. The readings showed a faint but sharp energy signature, unlike anything in the Imperial database. The scouts moved closer, engines low, scanning carefully. At first, they saw only the soft red glow of the nebula's gas clouds. Then, like a shadow stepping out from behind a curtain, a shape began to form. "Contact!" one scout reported over the encrypted channel. "Unidentified vessel bearing 273, range 20,000 kilometers. Shape matches Ardent report. No transponder," the second scout confirmed. "It's just sitting there inside the gas, not moving. Reading no active shields. No weapon locks." Fleet Command acted quickly. Within hours, a squadron of fast cruisers was dispatched to the sector. The order was clear: approach carefully, surround the vessel, and attempt communication. If no response came, be ready to force a closer scan. The lead ship in the squadron was the Vigilant, commanded by Captain Loran, a cautious officer with 30 years of service. His voice was calm as he addressed his crew. "We will keep formation and follow standard first contact protocol. Do not fire unless ordered. This is an unknown. Respect it until we know what it is." As the Vigilant and her escorts closed in, the unknown ship became clearer on their sensors. It was identical to the one the Ardent had seen. Same elegant lines, same seamless hull, same quiet presence. Loran ordered a greeting sent. The comm officer transmitted in Imperial Common, trade speech, and the universal tone code used across the galaxy. The message repeated twice. Silence answered. "Sir," said the sensor chief, "I'm reading something odd. The ship is there, but the energy profile is shifting. It's like it's looking at us." Loran's eyes narrowed. "Looking?" "Yes, sir. Our scans are bouncing back in strange patterns as though it's returning the signal in ways we don't expect. Not random, almost like it's studying our scans." Loran didn't like the sound of that. "Keep shields at half power. Helm, bring us around to flank it." The squadron moved, careful not to close too quickly. For a moment, everything was still. The nebula's gas swirled in slow patterns around the unknown vessel. Then, without any warning, it began to fade. "Vanishing!" the sensor chief shouted. "Mass reading dropping. No, splitting, sir. It's duplicating itself in multiple positions." On the tactical display, the single icon representing the unknown ship became 3, then 5, then 7, each one in a different position around the squadron. "They're not real," said the science officer. "Echoes. It's creating false positions to confuse us." Loran acted fast. "Hold your positions. Do not fire. Focus scans on the original contact." The echoes flickered and vanished, leaving only the real ship, still in the same spot, still silent. Then in the space of a blink, it was gone. "No jump signature," the sensor chief reported. "It just disappeared." The squadron searched the nebula for hours, but found nothing. Loran sent a simple report back to Fleet Command. "Contact confirmed. Vanished instantly. Technology unknown. Vessel displayed controlled deception measures. Back at Fleet Command, High Admiral Corvin studied the latest data with growing unease. Every encounter was the same, brief, controlled, and one-sided. The unknown ship never attacked, never responded to demands, but also never allowed itself to be cornered. "It's not running from us," Corvin said in a private meeting with his senior advisors. "It's letting us see it when it wants. That's not a prey animal. That's a predator testing the limits of the cage." One of the older admirals, a man named Diel, spoke slowly. "Sir, there's an old name for ships like this, from the days before the Empire reached this part of the galaxy." Corvin raised an eyebrow. "Go on." "Earth," Diel said simply. "The Terrans, supposedly gone for centuries. But the stories say their ships could appear anywhere, strike, without warning and vanish before you could fire back." Several officers exchanged glances. "Legends," one said dismissively. "Perhaps," Diel replied, "but legends don't disable fleets or confuse every scanner in the Empire." Word of these encounters leaked, as it always did. Not to the public yet, but to the shadowy places where information was traded for credits. Smugglers, mercenaries, and old spacers began whispering about the Ghost Blade, a human warship that could not be caught. Some swore they had seen it decades ago, long before the Ardent's report. Others claimed they knew someone who had been marked by it, followed quietly for days before it disappeared. The stories spread, and with them came an old, almost forgotten warning. If you see the Ghost Blade, it has already seen you. Commander Mira on the Ardent watched all of this unfold from the quiet border she still patrolled. Her crew had returned to their calm routines, but there was always a faint sense of waiting now, like a breath held too long. One night cycle, Rin, the sensor officer, approached her in the dim light of the bridge. "Commander," he said, "if it comes back, do you think it will be the same one?" Mira looked out at the stars. "Ships like that aren't made in fleets," she said, softly. "If it comes back, I think it will be the same one, and I think it will remember us." Rin nodded slowly. "Then maybe it's not hunting us. Maybe it's watching something else." Mira said nothing, but the thought stayed with her long. After Rin returned to his station, far away, in a place no Imperial chart recorded, the unknown ship drifted in the shadow of a dead moon. Inside, its systems replayed the scans it had taken of the Ardent and the Imperial fleet. Silent algorithms compared readings, measured strengths and weaknesses, and built patterns from the Empire's every move. A single, calm voice, human, but not bound to any one body, spoke into the stillness. "They're looking for us," it said. "Good. Let them look. The longer they search, the more we will know." In the darkness, the Ghost Blade turned toward its next destination. The Ghost Blade had now been seen 3 times. Each encounter lasted less than a few minutes, yet the Imperial fleet had poured weeks of resources into chasing it with no result. In the tall, cold archives deep beneath Bracos Prime, Research Director Solon sat at a long metal desk, studying a folder so old its paper edges were worn and curling. The Empire rarely used paper anymore, but this file had been kept exactly as it was found, pulled from a collapsed station on the edge of the Perseus Arm. The words inside were faded but still readable. The heading was simple: Terran Naval Record. Classified. Solon turned a page carefully, his eyes scanning a list of ship names long forgotten. Some were marked lost, others missing, and a few, just a few, marked status unknown. His finger stopped on one line. ENS Blade of Dawn, status active, special clearance required. He frowned. There was no date for active, no retirement record, no battle report. It was as if the ship had simply walked out of history and into the dark. High Admiral Corvin arrived without warning. He stood behind Solon's chair, tall and rigid. "You found something?" Solon looked up. "Possibly. This file survived the purge of non-essential records 200 years ago. Most of Earth's history was destroyed or locked away when the Empire absorbed its colonies. But this," he tapped the folder, "this suggests that not all Terran ships were destroyed." Corvin's jaw tightened. "The official story is that Earth was rendered uninhabitable after the resource wars. The survivors scattered. Their fleets were dismantled or captured. There are no Terran ships left." "That's what the official story says," Solon replied calmly. "But the Blade of Dawn matches the description from the Ardent and from the scouts in the nebula. Long, smooth hull, no visible seams, patterned skin, and its technology, vanishing without warp or jump, is something Earth was rumored to be testing in the last years before contact with the Empire." Corvin didn't move for a long moment. Finally, he said, "If this is true, then we are dealing with a survivor, or worse, a guardian." While the Fleet Command discussed ancient files in secret, the story of the Ghost Blade kept spreading in quiet corners of the galaxy. In the crowded docking bays of the neutral trade hub of Virine's Gate, merchant crews whispered over mugs of thick, spiced brew. A tall, gray-scaled reptilian trader leaned over to his companion. "I knew a man," he began, "who swore he saw a human ship when he was young. It was decades ago. Said it could appear right behind you without tripping your alarms." His friend, a short, wide-eyed avian pilot, shook her head. "Humans are gone. The Empire wiped them out." "That's the story," the reptilian said. "But the Ghost Blade? That's human work. No other species builds ships that think." A hooded figure at the next table, human by the look of... His hands sipped quietly and said nothing. But under the table, he sent a coded message from a hidden transmitter. "It's here again. The stories are reaching every port. Be ready." Back aboard the Ardent, Commander Mira's crew continued their patrol, though the air felt heavier. Rin, the sensor officer, had been spending more hours than necessary in the data room, studying every reading from their first encounter. He replayed the musical exchange again and again, listening not with his ears but with his mind. One evening cycle, Noor, the communications officer, found him there. "You're still on that?" she asked gently. Rin didn't look up. "When it answered our tone, I don't think it was just copying us. I think it was speaking. We just didn't understand the language." Noor frowned. "You think it was trying to say something?" Rin nodded slowly. "And I think it was something simple, like, 'I see you,' or 'You are noted.'" Noor thought about that for a long moment before replying. "If that's true, then maybe it wasn't warning us off. Maybe it was just acknowledging us." In the capital's political circles, the whispers had begun to reach even the imperial court. Ministers spoke of trade fleets growing nervous, of border colonies asking for additional protection, and of certain rival powers quietly adjusting their patrol patterns. One minister, a thin man with sharp eyes, said during a closed meeting, "If the Ghost Blade is Terran and the Terrans are alive, then the balance of power shifts. The other empires will want to speak to them or hide from them, and neither of those helps our control." The Emperor listened, saying nothing. He rarely showed his thoughts, but when the meeting ended, he called for Corvin in private. "I want it found," the Emperor said quietly. "I don't care if it's human or machine. If it belongs to the past, we must take it. If it belongs to the present, we must control it. Do you understand?" Corvin bowed. "Yes, my Emperor." Far from Bracos Prime, in a dimly lit library, on a forgotten moon, an old archivist named Malin moved along shelves heavy with dust. Few came here now. The Empire had long stopped funding such places, preferring central databanks. But Malin knew that some truths survived only in places no one bothered to clean. He pulled down a cracked, leather-bound book and opened it to a page marked with a thin ribbon. There was an illustration, old, hand-drawn, of a ship that looked very much like the Ghost Blade. Below it, a caption read, "Guardian of the Homeworld, seen when Earth is in danger." Malin smiled faintly. "So you've returned," he murmured to the empty room. "I wondered when you would." A week later, the fleet got its first break. Long-range sensors on an outpost near the Lorne Belt detected the same energy signature recorded by the Ardent, brief, faint, but unmistakable. Corvin ordered a response immediately. This time, instead of sending a full fleet, he chose a small, fast task group led by the Resolute, a destroyer with the best experimental tracking gear the Empire could field. Captain. Sarah of the Resolute was young, ambitious, and eager to prove herself. "We'll catch it this time," she told her crew. "It can't vanish forever." Her ships entered the Lorne Belt carefully, weaving between the tumbling rocks and glowing dust clouds. At first, nothing seemed unusual. Then a shadow moved across one of the larger asteroids, too sharp, too fast to be a passing rock. "There!" the sensor chief called. "Bearing 092, range 8,000 kilometers." Sarah leaned forward. "Lock sensors. Keep weapons cold. Just track it." The Ghost Blade slid into view, gliding silently between the drifting stones. For a few precious seconds, it was theirs to watch. Then, without warning, a pulse swept through the task group. Consoles flickered, sensor readings scrambled. The ship's engines dropped to idle as if an invisible hand had pressed a pause button. Sarah gripped her chair. "Report!" "Power systems unresponsive," engineering called. "Weapons offline. Shields offline. Helm controls frozen." On the main screen, the Ghost Blade turned slowly, its bow facing the Resolute. No weapons appeared, no threat came. Only a faint ripple along its hull like the shimmer of heat on stone. Then, across every ship's comm system, a voice spoke. Calm, steady, and unmistakably human. Not yet. The Ghost Blade vanished. Moments later, the task group's systems came back online as if nothing had happened. When Corvin heard Sarah's report, his first question was not about the ship's abilities, but about the voice. "Human," Sarah said with certainty. "Not a recording, not synthetic. It sounded alive." Corvin dismissed the room and stood alone at the window of his command chamber. Somewhere out there, a human ship was choosing when to appear and when to vanish. It knew the Empire was looking for it, and it didn't seem afraid. Bracos Prime's orbital shipyard was the pride of the Empire. It floated above the planet like a crown of steel and light, its vast arms holding half-built warships, merchant vessels, and repair docks. Here, the Empire's largest cruisers were born, their hulls stitched together by hundreds of small drones. It was a place no enemy had ever reached. The defenses were legendary: thick shield walls, planetary missile batteries, and a constant patrol of warships. The shipyard was considered untouchable, which was why everyone froze when the alarms began to sound. On the control deck of the shipyard, Director Halvin stood at the center platform, staring at the massive central screen. A shape had appeared on the outer sensors without warning, directly inside the defensive perimeter. It had not been tracked entering, nor detected by the long-range scans. It was simply there. The silhouette was instantly familiar to anyone who had seen the Ardent's report. A long, smooth hull, blade-like in shape, with faint patterns shimmering across its skin. The Ghost Blade. Halvin's voice was sharp. "Get me fleet command now! Raise every shield and bring all weapons online!" Dozens of turrets along the station's hull swiveled to aim at the intruder. The patrol cruisers in orbit broke from their routes and moved in. Within seconds, over 200 weapons were locked on the unknown vessel. The Ghost Blade didn't move. High Admiral Corvin was in his office when the call came. The officer on the other end was breathless. "Sir, it's here. Above Bracos Prime. Corvin didn't wait for more. I'm on my way. He arrived at the command center within minutes, striding past officers who were shouting orders into headsets. The giant tactical map showed the Ghost Blade at the very heart of Imperial space, surrounded by enough firepower to vaporize a city. Corvin's eyes narrowed. Has it made any move? None, sir, a commander replied. No weapon, locks, no engine burns. It's just sitting there. Corvin stepped forward. Send a transmission. All channels. Demand its identity and purpose. The message went out. It was polite, but firm. Imperial fleet protocol mixed with a warning that any hostile action would be met with force. No reply came. Instead, the Ghost Blade began to turn slowly, aligning its bow with the shipyard's main control tower. The motion was smooth, deliberate and unhurried, like a predator strolling into view. Lock everything, Corvin ordered. If it so much as powers a weapon, he never finished. Every weapon in orbit went dark. It happened instantly, like a switch being flipped. The massive defense turrets froze in place, their targeting systems dead. The patrol cruisers' engines sputtered and shut down. The shipyard's shields collapsed in silence. On the control deck, Director Halvin's voice shook. We've lost all systems. Weapons, shields, comms, everything. Engineers frantically checked their consoles. Sir, it's not damage. It's like the controls are simply not ours anymore. Then, without warning, an image appeared. Not on the comm screens, not through any visible projection, but directly, in the minds of everyone on the station, on the cruisers, and in the command center on the planet below. It was Earth. Blue oceans, white clouds, green continents. The image was vivid and alive, as if the viewer were floating just above the atmosphere. Some saw the sun rising over the curve of the planet, its light spilling across the surface. Others saw a storm swirling far below, massive and beautiful. No one spoke. For a few long seconds, there was only the image, holding them still. Then, it was gone. Systems came back online just as quickly as they had vanished. Turrets powered up, shields flared back into place, and engines hummed to life. The Ghost Blade remained exactly where it had been, drifting quietly. Corvin's voice was calm but cold. Target it now! Sir, the weapons officer began, but Corvin cut him off. I said, target it. Weapons locked onto the Ghost Blade. The targeting reticles blinked green, waiting for the order to fire. But before Corvin could give it, the ship was gone. No warp signature, no jump trail, just empty space where it had been a heartbeat before. Later, in the quiet of his private chamber, Corvin replayed the events in his mind. The display of power had been precise, controlled, and deliberate. The Ghost Blade had disabled the Empire's strongest defenses without harming a single system permanently. It had shown them Earth, not in ruins, not abandoned, but alive. And then it had left. He knew the message was not for him alone. It was for the entire Empire. In the days that followed, the incident above Bracos Prime became the most discussed topic in the upper ranks, though officially it did not exist. Reports were classified, witnesses were ordered to silence. But the high image of Earth could not be erased from memory, and in quiet rooms officers whispered about what it meant. Some said it was a warning, stay away from whatever was left of humanity. Others believed it was an invitation, a sign that humans wanted the galaxy to know they still lived. For Mira and the crew of the Ardent, the news came in fragments. A friend of Noor's in Fleet Communications sent a coded message. It came to Bracos. Shut them all down. Showed them a world. Mira read the message twice, then looked out the bridge viewport. She wondered what it would feel like to see Earth with her own eyes, even in a vision. She had been born long after the Empire claimed humans were gone. to her, Earth was just a word in a dusty archive. But now she was starting to believe the stories. Rin, standing beside her, said quietly, "If they can appear inside Bracos Prime, they can appear anywhere." "Yes," Mira agreed, "which means they choose where they appear and why." On the far edge of the galaxy, the Ghost Blade floated in the shadow of an asteroid, hidden from all known sensors. Inside, the human voice that had spoken to Captain Sarah in the Lorne Belt spoke again, this time to a crew that no Imperial officer knew existed. "They're watching more closely now," the voice said. A woman at one of the consoles smiled faintly. "Good. They'll learn faster that way." Another voice, deeper, added, "They'll also fear faster." "Fear isn't the goal," the first voice replied. "Understanding is." The incident at Bracos Prime shook the Empire in a way no enemy had managed in centuries. The image of Earth had burned into the minds of those who saw it, and although the event was classified, the truth slipped quietly into the shadows of the galaxy. The Emperor, however, was not a man who accepted humiliation. In the grand strategy chamber, surrounded by the tallest walls of polished black stone, he spoke in a voice that carried the weight of command. "No more games," he said. "If the Ghost Blade appears again, it will not leave. We will crush it." High Admiral Corvin stood at the table's edge. "Your Majesty, with respect, this ship's capabilities are beyond anything we've encountered. It disables our systems without damage. It appears and vanishes at will. We must be careful." "Careful?" The Emperor's voice hardened. "The people must not believe we are powerless. Assemble the Grand Fleet." Corvin hesitated. The Grand Fleet had not been gathered in over a century. It was the Empire's ultimate show of force, hundreds of warships, from nimble interceptors to city-sized dreadnoughts. Such a deployment would empty half the Empire's sectors of their main defenses, but the order was given, and so the hunt began. For weeks, the Empire prepared. Shipyards worked without pause, loading munitions, calibrating weapons, and fitting the newest sensor arrays to every vessel. Fleet officers studied the Ghost Blade's past appearances, searching for patterns. The best navigators plotted hundreds of possible interception points. Finally, intelligence came in. A small outpost near the Veil Rift, a deep scar in space where light bent strangely, had detected the Ghost Blade's energy signature. The location was perfect for an ambush. The Rift's unstable space lanes would limit escape routes, and the Grand Fleet could surround the target from multiple angles. On the day of the operation, the Grand Fleet emerged from jump space in disciplined formation. Ship after ship slid into position, forming a vast net of firepower. The Imperial Sun, the Emperor's personal flagship, sat at the center, a towering spear of steel and armor. Corvin stood on its bridge, his hands clasped behind his back. "All ships hold position," he ordered. "We wait for confirmation of target." Minutes passed. The tension grew. Then the sensor officer spoke. "Contact. Bearing 180. Range 1,000,000 kilometers. It matches the Ghost Blade's profile exactly." Corvin gave the signal. "All units, close the net." The Grand Fleet moved as one, tightening the circle around the unknown ship. It drifted slowly at the rift's edge, as if unaware of the hundreds of warships closing in. "Send the message," Corvin said. The comms officer's voice rang through the void. "Unidentified vessel, you are surrounded by the Imperial Grand Fleet. Power down your systems and prepare to be boarded. Any attempt to flee will be met with force." The Ghost Blade made no move. No reply came. Corvin's eyes narrowed. "All ships, target main systems. Hold fire until my mark." Suddenly, a ripple spread from the Ghost Blade. It was invisible to the naked eye, but every sensor across the fleet recorded it. A pulse, soft and fast, like a wave through still water. On the Imperial Sun, warning lights flared. "Admiral, our shield grid just went offline." Before Corvin could respond, the same report echoed across the fleet. Weapons disabled. Engines locked. Navigation controls frozen. In less than 10 seconds, the most powerful armada in the Empire was dead in space. Corvin gripped the railing. Report! Are we under attack? No damage readings, sir, the science officer replied. It's as if the ships are asleep. The Ghost Blade began to move, not toward escape, but straight into the heart of the fleet. It passed within, a few hundred meters of the Empire's largest battleships, gliding silently between them. Its hull shimmered with faint patterns, like a calm sea reflecting sunlight. On every bridge, officers stared as the ship drifted past. Some felt awe, others fear. All felt powerless. Then, without warning, ships began to vanish. The first disappearance happened to the cruiser Valiant. One moment it floated in formation, the next it was gone. No flash, no explosion, no debris. Where did it go? Someone whispered on the Imperial Sun. More followed. The crown of Vera, the stalwart, the iron spear, gone in silence one by one. Sensor readings showed nothing. It was as if the ships had been plucked from space and dropped into another reality. Admiral, the navigation chief said, his voice tight. If this continues, the fleet will be gone in minutes. Corvin faced the main screen, watching helplessly as another destroyer vanished. Can we trace it? Anything? Negative. No spatial distortion. No energy spike. The transitions are clean. Whatever they're using, it's beyond our understanding. As if to prove the point, the Ghost Blade stopped in open space, its bow turning toward the Imperial Sun. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then, a voice filled the bridge, not from the speakers, but inside each person's mind. You were warned. The words were calm, almost gentle. The ship vanished. In an instant, all remaining systems in the fleet came back online. Engines roared to life, weapons cycled up, shields flared, yet the Ghost Blade was nowhere to be found. The Grand Fleet had been reduced by nearly half. No wreckage, no casualties recorded, just empty space where proud warships had once stood. Corvin stood in silence. His officers waited for orders, but none came immediately. At last, he said, "Signal all ships. We are withdrawing." The retreat was slow and somber. The surviving ships returned to Imperial space in silence, their crews shaken. The missing vessels were listed as status unknown, but in private, Corvin wrote something different in his personal log. They are alive. Just elsewhere. Where that elsewhere was, he didn't know. But he suspected the Ghost Blade had scattered them across the galaxy, far from any Imperial supply lines, a move that would take months, perhaps years, to undo. In the outer sectors, rumors spread like wildfire. Stories of the vanishing war reached every port and outpost. Some claimed the Ghost Blade had destroyed the Grand Fleet. Others swore it had spared them on purpose, sending only a warning. In the dim mess hall of the Ardent, the crew listened quietly to a smuggler's tale over the comms. "They say the ship's human," the smuggler whispered. "And they say if you see it, you've already lost." Rin looked at Mira across the table. Neither of them spoke, but both knew one thing. The Ghost Blade wasn't finished. Far from Imperial space, in a quiet corner of the galaxy, the missing ships floated near an unknown star. Their systems were powered, their crews unharmed, but the stars around them were strange, unfamiliar. No charts matched. The loss of nearly half the Grand Fleet was the greatest embarrassment in Imperial history. The Emperor had not spoken publicly since the vanishing war, but everyone in the upper ranks could feel the tension. Orders were short, clipped, and heavy with unspoken anger. High Admiral Corvin knew the truth. Anger alone would not solve this problem. The Ghost Blade could not be trapped, could not be damaged, and could not be predicted. The only constant was that it appeared when it chose to appear, and when it did, the Empire's strength meant nothing. Corvin stood in the quiet of his personal study, reviewing every report the Empire had on the vessel. The patterns were clear. The Ghost Blade never attacked without purpose, never harmed lives when it could avoid it, and never lingered longer than it needed to. It was as if the ship were teaching them something. But what? The answer came sooner than anyone expected. It happened in the middle of the Imperial High Council's closed session. Corvin was there, seated with the other admirals, the Emperor at the head of the great table. They were debating how to rebuild the Grand Fleet when, without warning, every light in the chamber dimmed. A low hum filled the air, not from the building's systems, but from everywhere. The guards reached for their weapons, but the Emperor raised a hand, silencing them. In the air above the table, an image formed, not on a screen, not projected from any visible device, but real, like a memory painted into the air itself. It was Earth again. Blue, green, white, alive and whole, a voice followed. Calm, measured, undeniably human. You have tested your strength. You have shown your reach. Now hear this. Do not come to Earth. Ever. No one moved. The voice was not loud, but it carried a weight that pressed on every chest in the room. We are not your enemy, unless you make us one. We have seen empires rise and fall. We will see yours too if you force us to. Stay away from our world. Stay away from our people. The image shifted. They saw the Ghost Blade, drifting in space, stars glinting on its smooth hull. We do not seek control. We do not seek conquest. But we will not be hunted. We will not be claimed. The next time you come for us, there will be no warnings. The image faded. The lights returned. The hum stopped. The entire message had lasted less than a minute. For a long time, no one in the chamber spoke. Finally, the Emperor's voice broke the silence. Track that signal. Find its source. An aide was already at work, fingers flying over the console. After several seconds, he stopped, his face pale. Your Majesty. The signal came from inside the palace. Within hours, the story spread across the highest levels of the Empire. Though officially it remained a secret, officers whispered it to trusted friends, and those friends passed it further. The Ghost Blade had reached the very heart of Imperial power without crossing a single border. In distant stations and quiet outposts, the tale took on a life of its own. Merchants spoke of the Earth Oath, the warning that bound even the Emperor. Border colonies began to speak more freely about independence. Rival powers took note, adjusting their treaties and fleets. The balance of fear in the galaxy had shifted. On the Ardent, Mira received the news in a short, encrypted burst from a fleet contact. Ghost Blade spoke to the Emperor, told him never to come to Earth. Everyone is talking. Rin read the message over her shoulder. So it's true, he said quietly. They are human. Mira didn't answer right away. She thought of the first encounter, the simple musical exchange, the way the ship had looked at them. Yes, she said at last. And they're not hiding anymore. Not really. They've told us who they are and what they want. Noor, leaning against the console, crossed her arms. Do you think the Emperor will listen? Mira's eyes stayed on the stars outside. I think he'll try to find them again. But after what they did to the Grand Fleet, even he has to know. Finding them doesn't mean keeping them. Far from Imperial space, in the uncharted depths, the Ghost Blade drifted beside a small green world untouched by any star maps. Inside, the crew reviewed the operation. A woman at the central station smiled faintly. The message was delivered. No losses. The entire council saw it. The calm male voice, the same one that had spoken to the Emperor, replied, Good. Now we wait. They will decide what kind of empire they want to be, with us watching. Another crew member asked, Do you think they'll stop? The voice paused before answering. Not right away, but each time they reach for us, they will lose something they thought was theirs. Sooner or later, they will learn. The ship turned slowly, its engines whispering. Its course was already set for another border, this one belonging to a rival. Power that had also begun asking questions about the humans. The Ghost Blade's work was far from over. In the Imperial capital, Corvin stood on a balcony overlooking the city lights. The Emperor had given no public orders since the message, but the Admiral could feel the shift in the air. Less certainty, more caution. He wondered if this was how it had felt centuries ago, when the Empire first encountered another civilization, strong enough to stand against it. He thought of the warning, "Do not come to Earth." It wasn't just a line in the sand, it was a test. The Empire's next move would decide whether humans remained distant watchers or became something far more dangerous. Corvin looked up at the night sky, at the millions of unseen stars. Somewhere out there, the Ghost Blade was moving, choosing its own path, just as humanity always had. And for the first time in his long career, Corvin wasn't sure if he wanted to catch it.